as we was looking at pictures on the phone and I was talking to Louise, I felt like a pressure on my left shoulder. And it was like someone had grabbed my shoulder, but it's really hard to explain. It wasn't like a human physical grab, but I was very aware that someone could grab me. It was like like a really strong, like electricity kind of feeling in my left shoulder. And I've never felt that before.
Hey guys, and welcome to Your Ghost Stories. Please feel free to introduce yourselves to let everyone know a little bit about yourself, your background, and where you grew up.
So we're called Hidden UK, and we're obviously based in Buckinghamshire. And I'm Blair and Louise. We're a couple, and we're two people that have always been interested in the paranormal, urban exploration, history. It's kind of like obscure history and the unexplained. And we decided to start a channel together because it's a massive interest of ours. It has been since we were kids, right?
Yeah, definitely. We've always been into history, but more so um, the lesser known history. And what we found is when we were exploring history, there was always a paranormal aspect. So that's kind of why we've gone down the paranormal route as well.
Is the paranormal something that's always interested you both, like from an early age, or?
Definitely. I think the reason why the paranormal intrigues us so much is that both of us had paranormal experiences from a very early age. So we both grew up in houses where there was poltergeist activity, paranormal activity. So we've always been very open to that kind of thing.
Wow, I can't wait to get into some of those stories later. Um, but yeah, so what is it you guys do with Hidden UK? So do you go around telling stories about places, or?
Yeah, we started off doing kind of like obscure history and a bit of paranormal, and our aim is to kind of get around the whole of the UK. But we haven't even there's so much history and so many stories, kind of fairly local. We haven't actually managed to get that far. We've got to Kent and Suffolk and
Yeah,
things, but
we're kind of hidden London and hidden Buckinghamshire at the moment, aren't we?
we have got to Essex, Suffolk,
Yeah,
and play other
Yeah.
places. But there's a lot to cover,
yeah.
and we're actually going abroad in a few weeks. So we're actually going to do like a hidden UK on tour kind of thing. So
Oh, nice. Whereabouts are you guys going?
we cannot say it's a big secret, but we will be
Oh,
going live
nice.
from a
I don't
location.
keep it a secret, but Blair does.
Yeah,
Very cryptic.
yeah. It's got
Uh,
Yeah,
a lot of history that's tied to the UK.
oh,
There's a
cool.
lot of stuff there to do with paranormal, really sort of Knights Templar,
yeah.
and
Oh,
yeah, it's
nice.
going to be some really amazing lives when we're there.
Cool. I'm looking forward to catching those. So, for anyone that wants to find your channel, where can they find it?
TikTok's the best place. We did have an Instagram and YouTube, but we just kind of thought let's just focus on TikTok. That's kind of where it mainly is. We're on Patreon as well, but TikTok is where we always are.
Yeah, I think TikTok's where it's at, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
the videos that I post, I mean, some of them have got like over like 3,000 likes, and I post the same video on like Instagram, and I'm lucky if it gets like 10 likes.
I know it's definitely changed that platform a lot. So
Yeah,
TikTok
yeah.
is where everybody is, and it's the place to be really. And you can do so much of it as well.
So what would you say is your kind of end goal with Hidden UK? Like, do you want to make it into like a TV show or?
We would really love to do this full time. That is like the dream and the end goal. So we're just kind of building it up at the moment, trying to get out to as many places as possible. But yeah, we would like to do it full time and go and visit places, do urban exploration, and yeah, just run with it.
And maybe possibly run some tours and stuff eventually.
Yeah,
We've
definitely.
got our own podcast we just started as well, where we just talk to each other about different places we've been, and give listeners an insight into what where we've been, different places we've been. But yeah, I think the tour thing would be amazing at some point, whether it be a virtual tour or actual tour with people. We don't know yet, but we're kind of seeing where it's taking us.
Do you already do like investigations at locations then?
We have done some investigations, but what we found is that we couldn't really summon spirits or get any paranormal activity on demand. So every time we've gone and done an investigation, we've done a live and got absolutely nothing. And then when we go along and we just do our thing, then we always seem to get something happen, don't we?
Yeah, we've come to a kind of what our personal opinion is that when you, like Louise said, when you go somewhere and you go with all the gear and you like demand some kind of interaction with the paranormal spirits and stuff like that, nothing happens for us. But like when we have been places, just generally looking, we hear noises, we get touched. Yeah, so it's kind of a thing. If they want to interact with you, they will. But if they don't, you don't get anything. That's our opinion.
Yeah, that's what we found generally.
Nice, fascinating. Yeah, it's just like if you force it, it's not gonna happen, is it? And it's like you with spirits or ghosts or whatever. Previously they were just humans, right? So if you're just there bugging them, they're probably gonna be like, "Oh, well, I ain't gonna perform. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not your monkey." um,
Exactly, exactly. But we've had some interesting stuff happen.
so what kind of stuff have you encountered during investigations or during just urban exploration?
So we visited this church called All Saints Church in Isleworth in West London. And we didn't go there specifically for a paranormal investigation. We just went there. We were on a live and we were just going around filming. And we were specifically focusing on a plague pit where victims from the bubonic plague were buried. And then after the live ended, we were then taking photographs around the graveyard. And we actually captured the image of a man standing by a grave, which we believe is the image of a grave digger, which we've put on our TikTok. And we were so freaked out about it that we actually went back to the graveyard. And when we were there, we didn't go on a live, but we heard something rushing past us. We thought it was a dog or an animal. So we got our camera phone out again, started snapping pictures, and we picked up the image of a boy, didn't we?
Yeah, because as we were standing there, we heard like a rustling in these bushes, in these kind of bushes of where these urns were. But the bushes weren't thick at all. You could see very clearly into them. And I heard some kind of noise there, and I pointed to you, and Louise just started snapping the camera. I was taking pictures of whatever just in case. And then when we had a look at the pictures, it was a very clear image of a boy, a little boy, which is actually after learning that it's actually places haunted by the ghost of a little boy amongst other spirits as well.
Yeah. So we
Wow, how
seem to get
crazy!
things on phones, don't we? That's our main thing.
That's spooky. I'd love to see the picture that you snapped.
Yeah, we'll repost it and show
Yeah, we
people.
will.
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome. So what other locations have you guys visited that have really kind of stood out for you?
We visited Pluckley in Kent, which was one of Britain's most haunted villages. It's been in the Guinness Book of World Records. And we had a couple of paranormal experiences there, didn't we, Blair? Especially with our car.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we kind of visited a lot of different sites there in Pluckley, Kent. It was reported, I think, in the mid-80s, 1980s, to be one of the most haunted villages in Britain, right?
Yeah.
And went to a lot of locations and didn't kind of get much happening. Some of them were spooky, but as we ended the night, we kind of finished up in the graveyard, jumped in the car, and as was walking back to the car, we noticed that Louise's boot was open. So we kind of shut it, didn't think too much about it, and shut the boot, got in the car. The car was locked. And as we got in the car, there was an overbearing smell of alcohol in the car. Like when you go past someone that's maybe like an alcoholic or someone that drinks very regular, the smell was just overbearing. So we looked behind the seat quickly, thinking there was someone in the car with us.
Yeah.
And there was no one there, clearly. And we drove out the kind of village, and it took at least a couple of minutes for that to go, didn't it? It was really weird.
Yeah, it did. And we feel that since we visited Pluckley, we may have had some kind of attachment. So every time we got in the car, we'd feel like somebody was sitting in the seat behind us, and we'd heard scratching on the seat, hadn't we?
Yeah.
and you felt like you'd been kicked in the back of the seat as well.
Yeah, I was kicked in my kind of back, in like almost like when you have a child behind you in the sitting down, and they kind of kick their legs. I felt
Mm.
that 3 or 4 times in my back. So whether it was an attachment to us or something attached to the actual car, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think we might have brought something home from
Yeah,
Pluckley.
Wow, you got your haunted car. Well, hopefully it'll stay in the car and not come into your house.
the car's gone.
Oh, we got rid of the car
For that
because
reason.
since Pluckley, we had the paranormal activity in the car. Then the brakes went, had to get them replaced. The clutch went, and one day, I was driving down the road with my daughter, and the driver's window just spontaneously exploded. So
Wow.
I had to get auto glass out, and we just thought this car is now cursed.
I mean, that is a lot of bad luck and a lot of bad things to happen in a short space of time.
Definitely.
Yeah, creepy.
Glad to get rid of the car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, hope you need to put some kind of spiritual protection around your new car.
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah,
think
Stick
so.
some sage in your wing mirrors or something.
Yeah.
absolutely.
What other locations have really stood out to you guys?
We went to Borley Rectory. That was one that stood
Mm,
out to me. So I
that's
was
just
touching.
up the road from me, actually.
Oh, where are you?
Suffolk.
Suffolk. Yeah, my father's
Oh,
in
yeah,
Suffolk.
it's on the border, isn't it, of Essex?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm literally on the border of Essex, Suffolk, and Cambridge.
Okay, yeah. So my father lives in Sudbury.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, nice. Just up the road from me.
Yeah. So we went to Borley Rectory, or was not the actual rectory, because the rectory's not there no more, but Borley and Borley Churchyard. And we went during the day first, I think, didn't we? And
Yeah.
had a quick look around. And then we went back at night and walked up the pathway towards and was kind of doing just taking pictures, I think, wasn't we?
Yeah.
And we once again heard like footsteps on the grass, not on the path. And it was it must have been about 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. And then I felt like as we was looking at pictures on the phone and I was talking to Louise, I felt like a pressure on my left shoulder. And it was like someone had grabbed my shoulder, but it's really hard to explain. It wasn't like a human physical grab, but I was very aware that someone could grab me. It was like a really strong, like electricity kind of feeling in my left shoulder.
Mm.
And I've never felt that before.
Do you think you guys or either of you are quite susceptible to feeling these energies? Because not everyone gets these feelings or sensations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've both been susceptible to these kinds of things since children, but since we've started going to paranormal places, it seems to have escalated, hasn't it? It seems to have got worse for us.
It has, yeah. We both grew up in haunted houses, didn't we?
Yeah.
And the stories of where Louise grew up are quite chilling, and the one where I grew up in is quite chilling as well. And I think we've both been very susceptible to stuff since we were kids. But yeah, the more we've kind of got exposed to it, I think you get less scared, more intrigued, but more stuff happens, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you worry that over time or since being a child that you've kind of let in some negative or evil kind of energy or spirits into your lives? Attachments? You touched on that briefly.
For sure. If you look at my life in particular, it's always, I always seem to have bad luck, um, negative situations, and I do wonder, is it because I've opened myself up to these kinds of things? I don't know if you feel the same, Blair.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of sort of, everyone gets bad luck and stuff in life, and it's just part of life. But yeah, I mean, the house that I grew up in, all my family grew up in one particular house, which is, we done a post about it and a podcast about it called 15 Second Avenue. And the stuff that happened in the house would give kind of like the story, the film Poltergeist, a run for its money. And like everyone experienced stuff together. And I do feel that certain things have carried on through my life and my family's life in terms of just rubbish luck, really.
Yeah.
If you were to kind of go down the route of trying to, rid these negative energies, spirits, what kind of personal beliefs do you have? Like, where would you seek help?
Neither of us are particularly religious. Like, we don't follow any particular religion, but obviously we're cultural Christians, um, and we do believe in something. Um, I think we'd probably be drawn to, like, probably getting the Bible and crosses and stuff like that, because that's usually what people go to, isn't it, when people are trying to get rid of these things, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm not
mean,
really sure.
we also don't want to give the image that we are really unlucky people,
No.
because we're not, we do have a great time, do great things, but I think when you think deeply about things, there seems to be sometimes a little bit of a cloud above some of the things that we've done in our life.
Yeah,
I don't know, like a lingering thing, a little bit.
maybe it's time to stop the paranormal.
No
yeah.
way. It's too intriguing.
Yeah, I do really think that we have to be careful and we have to protect ourselves when dealing with this kind of stuff. I think having a conversation about it and stuff is absolutely fine. But yeah, when you're constantly exposing yourself to these places, especially places like Borley Rectory, which are incredibly from tons of accounts in the past, incredibly active, and there's a lot of strange stuff going on there. And I think if you're not aligned, kind of mind, body, spirit, or whatever, if anything's out of place, it can be quite easy for a negative attachment to come in. Um, but I think we all have those. Everyone has something like that attached. I don't think anyone's. I'm sure there are some people, but most people in our lives, struggle, suffer. We have, and yeah, hardships. And I personally do believe that they can be attached to good and evil. And it's funny what you were saying, Louise, as well. Like, so I'm not necessarily I'm not a religious person at all, but like recently, I've been thinking, and then the more people I chat to, I'm trying to come to a conclusion about what is good and evil, because in my core I've always believed in good and I've believed in evil. And I'm involved in the music industry, and from what I see, and from what everyone sees, there's a lot of um, what looks like dark forces involved, in that kind of industry. And I've always, yeah, I really do believe in, like, demons, the devil, and I think there is power to it. So it's like, how do you, yeah, where do your beliefs lie? Like, I'm in that situation right now where I'm not religious, but if I believe in evil and I believe in the devil, then I must believe in something that's opposite to that, right? In good and in a god, whatever that may be. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic, and that's what makes the paranormal and why we're involved in that field so interesting, because it really is fascinating. And it's like, you just want the answers, but absolutely no one has the answers. So it's kind of just like a minefield of you can just get lost, right?
Absolutely.
I think when you really analyze it, and the world we live in a world of opposites. So everything has a positive and negative, if you want to put it, or an opposite, right? Hard, soft, fast, slow. So if there's good, and you can see a lot of good in the world, right? There is a lot of good, but there's also a lot of evil as well, and that's very obvious when you look at the news and a lot of stuff that goes on in the world.
Especially with recent events.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And you can think of without going too deep into other stuff, the stuff that happens to families and kids that go missing. And I mean, there's so many different topics you could cover with that kind of theory. But like you said about the music industry and the movie industry, they're all run by organizations and a belief system, and the people that run them industries are they believe, they worship the evil side of stuff. So
Mm.
there has
And
to be a good side as well.
you can't really deny that, can you? Like,
No.
maybe 10 years ago it was a conspiracy theory, but now, you look at everything, the all these award ceremonies, the Super Bowl, like all these massive world events. and they're just absolutely covered in, you know, symbology and what looks like, you know, rituals.
Yeah, it's very out there, isn't it? It's very
Mm,
in our faces now. And even though we're not religious and we don't go to church, I think that's why when you said what kind of things would we do to protect ourselves, I think that's why I would probably gravitate towards like crosses and Bibles and
mm.
stuff, because if all of these powers that be are pushing this kind of demonic stuff, then the opposite to that would probably be God.
Mm. And that does seem to be the answer, right? You know,
Yeah.
the more I question it and the more I look into it, it's like that's the answer for to end that, you know, the demonic, evil, dark forces. And it's been that way for, you know, hundreds of thousands of years. Um,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah,
yeah, it's just it really is, like, as an atheist, it's and talking about, you know, spirituality and stuff, it really is confusing, you know, what to believe.
yeah. You know, whether we follow the conventional systems as they're laid down. I mean, a lot of the conventional systems are all kind of, you know, controlled and manipulated to in order to
Mm,
control people and stuff as well. So, but there has to be a source, right? When you think about it, there has to be a source, whichever that is. I believe there is a source
mm.
of creation. I just don't know in which type it is. So, and it has to be good, you know, because there is definitely bad. But it does make you question life and what happens to us when we die. And you know, we've definitely had interactions with whether it be relatives that have passed over or things as we go around and do these investigations and explore places and just explore the world. Stuff happens. It's part of life, and there's a whole bigger thing out there
Mm.
than people realise.
So what would you say on that note to people that are just completely skeptical? How what you know, you've had experiences and you've seen things and had encounters in your life. What do you feel towards somebody that's, you know, maybe closed minded or just entirely skeptical and, you know, everything's just science based?
Personally, I find it quite frustrating because I'm certain that the things that we've seen, felt, and heard are very real to us. And not only have we experienced things separately, we've experienced things together, um, and we've heard things together. So we're very sure that what we see is very real. So when people say, I don't believe in ghosts, there's no spirits and everything, we kind of get frustrated with them because we're like, how can you not believe? How can you not see? I
Mm.
don't know, maybe there's just different types of people, or some people are just very closed off.
Maybe some people go through life and never
Mm,
have any experience with the paranormal at all, or never see anything. And I've known people before like that, like, you know, and but they never seem to have any experiences whatsoever. So, but other people do have lots, you know. It's a strange thing.
yeah, it's very weird, isn't
And at the same time, is I agree with you. Is as somebody who's had experiences, is, you know, to me it's undeniable that there's something more than, you know, we die and that's it. Everything goes black. Um, so yeah, but at the same time, you've got to, I guess, understand why somebody who hasn't had an experience must feel that way, right? Like, if you've never seen anything or experienced anything, and that you're just someone's just like, oh, this happened to me the other day. It's like, oh, did it, or was it something, you know, psychological? Because I really do think 99% of the time there probably is a reasonable or scientific
it?
explanation, but there is
Yeah,
that 1% or there it's something's there, you know.
yeah. We always try and debunk ourselves
Yeah, we do.
when we experience things. We're the first people to critique ourselves and like, was it this? Was it that? Did that really happen? And we go through a process of critiquing and debunking ourselves. And if we come to the end of that and we're like, actually, there was no explanation for what happened, then we're like, well, then it must be something else, you know?
And that's important as well, isn't it? Because, you know, in this game that you're in, you know, content creation, yeah, you want people to watch your videos and click on your videos, but at the same time, you don't want to fake it or force anything. Everything's got to be natural and organic.
Yeah, definitely. And that's sometimes why we get a little bit frustrated, because we try to put out original content, especially with the paranormal. But what we found on TikTok is there are quite a few channels with like massive followers that are faking stuff with like
Mm,
fishing wire and stuff like
yeah.
that. And
It's so
yeah,
obvious.
it's very obvious.
Yeah, the people that do them channels, and they do them for entertainment purposes only, and that's fine. That's absolutely, as long as you're honest that you're doing it for entertainment, people to watch, it's a bit of
Mm.
fun. That's all good. But when people portray that, that what they're doing is genuine, and it's so obviously not. That's kind of, I think that's probably not right. And I'd rather have not as exciting content, but it being completely genuine
Mm.
Yeah.
than faking it just to get the likes.
Yeah, and that really sucks. Like I went to an investigation like years back, and there was a guy, like two or three guys there with a big camera and stuff, and we're doing all the Ouija board and all that, and it was just so obvious that these guys were just forcing it and faking it, and it just completely
No,
ruined the experience for me and everyone else. And yeah, it's just sad. There's a reason why you want to get involved in the paranormal, and as a as a collection of people, we're just intrigued and we want to find out more, not be like fooled by this crap fake content, which is so rife right now. You go online, it's just everywhere, it's just all this forced fake crap. And so yeah, it's nice to to that there are people out there that they're not doing it just for the likes or for the for the clout. It's because they're genuinely passionate about it. So let's go back to some of your stories. So let's start in the childhood houses, and yeah, let's go.
so I grew up in a town in West London called Hayes, and I lived in a very spooky house called 157 Yeading Lane. And there was a lot of paranormal activity in the house, and it was first experienced by my mum. So um, if my dad was out at night working, my mum would hear toys being played with in the bedroom upstairs. And then she'd go up to the bedroom, open the door, and me and my brother would be fast asleep. So my mum started to get a little bit freaked out. So she'd lock herself in the porch until my dad came home. And then we'd hear sort of walking about and stuff like that. And one night I was in bed, and my bed faced the landing, and I was compelled to turn over in bed and look towards the landing. And as I turned and looked, I saw a baby at the top of the stairs. And I basically freaked out. I ran downstairs, and my mum said to me, "You look like you've seen a ghost." And I said, "I just did." My dad didn't believe me for years. He thought I made it up until one night he actually said, "Oh my God, I've seen it. I've seen it." And I said, "What did you see?" And he said, "I saw something which appeared to be a baby crawling up the stairs." So um, there was definitely the spirit of a child or a baby in that house. And a lot of paranormal activity as well, but I'm not sure if that was to do with the energies in the house growing up. There was a lot of arguing and turbulent times sometimes, so I do wonder if that kind of created poltergeist energy as well.
Mm. That's really interesting you say that, because from experience, and I've spoken about it on this podcast before. I also grew up in a house where there was lots of arguments, trauma, and I think it definitely does play a part into allowing these negative energies to kind of feed off of that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, like I believe I've experienced that firsthand without a doubt. So yeah, it's really interesting. But yeah, who wants the ghost of a bloody baby in their house? That's so creepy.
It's awful. It was so
Yeah.
creepy. And I I remember seeing it. It wasn't see-through. It was just as if you see somebody, it was solid. And it was there for a split second and then it disappeared.
Mm.
Really bizarre.
Scary. I think seeing a ghost of a baby would be terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. There's something about spirit children that are scarier than spirit adults.
Sure.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. I think the one is it 157?
Yeah.
157 Yedden Lane is a. I'm glad it's been put on the map.
But your house in Feltham, West
Yeah,
London, was creepy as well, wasn't it?
yeah. 15 Signet Avenue in West London. Was a house I grew up in as a kid with all my brothers, all my sisters, and the stuff that used to happen there. Uh, kind of mists coming upstairs. There'd be hands coming around the corner of doors to kind of go to light switches, turn lights off. My mum was grabbed around her ankles during the night and almost pulled off the bed. And she woke up in the morning, she had finger marks around her neck. And they're just some of the stuff that used to happen. And when we realised that the place was kind of really something really wrong there, stuff that went on there, we tried to sell the property. And I was about 10, 11 at the time. And all the sales kept falling through of that property. No one would buy it. They kept falling through. And we managed to sell the property finally. And we bought another house on the same estate. And when my mum was cleaning in one of the bedrooms, like pulled the carpets up, was cleaning, a really horrible stench came from the floorboards. And when we pulled the floorboards up, and I remember this now vividly, there underneath the floorboards was a made cross, but with animal bones, and it was in the shape of a cross tied with a bit of rope, and it was in the floorboards. And when we managed to move, whatever it was, followed us for the next 3 months to the next house, and we'd be woken probably every week with huge banging on the front door in the middle of the night, as if someone was in danger. And we'd all look out, 3 or 4 of us would look out the window, expecting to see a person or a woman there asking for help. And there was never anybody there. And that happened for about 3 months after we moved.
Wow, that is not what you want to see in your house. So where do you think the crossbones originated from? Sounds like it could be something like witchcraft or.
I don't know. They looked like they'd been there for a long time. And I was telling Louise recently about a story to do with that house about when we was all really young kids. I think my mum had just moved into the house fairly soon. Um, there was an old man that knocked on the front door, and I think he was handing out leaflets or something like that. And when my mum was in a conversation with him, he kept standing back and looking up at the windows. And my mum noticed that it was kind of odd behaviour, and she said to him, "Is everything okay?" And he said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" She was like, "Yeah, sure." And he said to her, "Has anything strange ever happened in this house?" And my mum was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Just anything strange, anything any weird things have happened here." And at that time, I think there'd been one or two things, but she didn't want to kind of disclose anything. But she said no. She said no, nothing had happened, and it went away. But she always questioned that. She should have said yes and dug deeper, you know. And we went to that house, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
And everyone, all the other houses down the street, all well kept. There's families there. The
Mhm.
houses look nice. There's flowers, and that house still is the only house that looks soft. There was a smashed window, and I've never been. I've only been back there once previously to that house, but I would never walk on the same side of the road as that house. So when me and Louise went back last year, I think it was,
Yeah, last summer.
yeah, that was the first time I actually had plucked up the courage to stand on the same side of the road as the house.
Yeah, it was very creepy. Um, I noticed that that house, the windows looked dirty, the net curtains were dirty, there were weeds in the garden, but every other house on the street was nice.
So strange.
Yeah,
And it was so weird to be back there and looking at it. I'd never ever go back in it. I would never go back in there because of I think because of the memories there and the attachment. I'd be frightened that if I went back in that house, whatever was there would recognise me somehow and be like, "There he is." You know, I don't know. Maybe that's just my mind, but
Do you know anything about the history of the house or the land?
um, Blair's house was on old farmland, and my house was an old Victorian house for people that worked at the local brickworks. We're both looking into ley lines at the moment, because we do believe that both of these properties are on ley lines. We won't go into too much depth about that because we're still learning ourselves, but we're learning about these energy lines, and we believe it's something to do with that, don't we?
Yeah, there seems to be a correlation, doesn't it, between energy lines, and we found out that a lot of places, a lot of munitions factories and places to do
Yeah,
with military are built on ley lines. We come
they
across that
are.
information, and we think I heard a story that a real negative ley line ran through my estate that I grew up on and ran where this house is, and so many bad things happened on that estate.
That's really interesting. And yeah, I've never really properly looked into ley lines before, but the stories that I'm told or that I've come across in recent years, that, like you say, there does seem to be a correlation. There does seem to be something going on. And going back to what we were saying at the start, like I'm very much a believer in the paranormal and stuff, but you have to have an air of skepticism when dealing with it. And I think, with ley lines and stuff, it could well just be that there's some kind of incredible energy or something's being thrown off that's causing the maybe like a psychological reaction. Or so yeah, it's fascinating. And so from what you've learned about ley lines, maybe some people listening have never heard of ley lines or come across them or know very, very little about them. So from what you've learned so far, could you explain a little bit about what ley lines are?
So far, what we've learned is that ley lines are like energy lines of like well-traveled ancient roads, and there's big ley lines that stretch across the UK and the world, and monuments are actually built along these ley lines. So, for instance, Stonehenge and things like that all follow these particular lines. So there's major lines, but then we've also learnt that there's smaller lines as well. And we're trying to find a map of every single ley line in the UK, but it's proving to be difficult. But there does seem to be some correlation we found with military bases being built along these kind of ley lines.
That's interesting. I've never come across that about the military buildings being on ley lines. What do you think the significance of that is? Why do you think military buildings, like obviously the powers that be, know these secrets of the world
Mm.
or knowledge of the world, so they're obviously being placed strategically. Why do you think like military bases would be placed on these on ley lines?
My personal opinion, from what I've read and what I know so far, um, our opinion is that the occult and whoever governs the world and governs all those things, they worship something, right? They worship something that's not good. So when you're building a military base or a munitions factory, generally they're going to do something that's probably not quite good. So I believe they're built on these ley lines for a reason. So some kind of worship or ritual takes place that the general soldiers probably don't know about.
And they harvest the energy from that ley line.
Yeah,
Mm.
in a negative way to do certain things. That's what I think.
There's a lot of anger, frustration, testosterone in these kind of places, right? These people are literally pushed to their limit. And yeah, and like you say, that's an interesting theory, because war is, there's nothing good about war. There's nothing, yeah, it's evil, right? No matter what sense it's evil. It's all about power, control, money. It's not
No,
about protection, or maybe, you know in in some circumstances in some countries, yeah, it might be. But
def-
like, it's these politicians, it's these powers that be, the people that really pull the strings, that they're like you said, they're clearly not good people, and they have evil agendas.
definitely.
Yeah, and this isn't to knock anyone that serves in the military. This
Not at all.
these are I have the greatest respect for anyone that goes and serves their country, because generally people sign up to things like that because they want to do good, they want to change the world, and they want to do something positive. But it's the people that run the show that's that they're the ones that know why they're going into countries and stuff. It's not really the soldiers they're just the grunts.
They're just a pawn.
Yeah.
They're a pawn in a game of chess.
Yeah.
And when they're signing up, most of the time they're really young, they're naive, they're lost, they don't know what path they want to take, and they're promised all this, everything from the military. We'll give you this, 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 and this. And you see the adverts, right?
Yeah, be the best.
And and then once they're finished with them, or once they're injured, they'll just chew them up, spit them out, and their veterans most of the time aren't left with any support. How many veterans do we have in the UK right now, and especially America?
Yeah,
just struggling, right? And they're struggling with PTSD and everything they've gone through and seen. And it's so sad that they've got no support, they've got nothing there after everything they've been through. So yeah, no, that's really interesting. Actually, I've never heard about the military and the ley lines. So, but yeah, like it makes sense, right? Why those places would be there? What do you think? There's any link with ley lines and potentially like free energy?
Did you say free energy?
Yeah.
We never thought about that, have we? That's quite interesting.
As in what way? In what way do you mean? Like,
so with like UFOs and stuff, I saw you guys have an interest in that as well. So UFOs seem to have, or UAPs, whatever you want to call them, seem to have run on free energy, right? They don't run on electricity or gas or fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another thing that's potentially being suppressed, right? Because gas and electric make a lot of money for for the richest of the rich. So I think we do have the ability to run cars on hydrogen, water, and we do have the ability to power civilizations without damaging the planet. So yeah, free energy, I think. It's not something I've necessarily looked into, but I'd just be interested to hear your thoughts on like ley lines, and because there's clearly some kind of energy there, right?
Definitely.
So yeah, maybe this could be harnessed or maybe years ago, hundreds of years ago, it was used. Maybe like with the pyramids and stuff. Maybe it's something to do with ley lines, because I'm positive if you looked at ley lines, if you looked at the maps, the pyramids in Egypt is probably going to run right through there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think there's a particular ley line that runs through two of the UK's biggest stone circles. One is Stonehenge, and there's a few others, and I think they go all the way through monuments in Europe, all the way to places like Israel. So I'm pretty sure there must be ley lines that connect to the pyramids of Giza and Rome as well.
The Vatican.
Yeah.
We went to one of the places we went to a few months back now was a place called Orford Ness, and that was a huge military testing base for atomic energy and other undisclosed experiments that went on there. And you can actually visit. It's on the Spit in Orford, and out on it's called a Spit. It's like a bit of land.
Yeah, it's in the North Sea. Just off the coast of the North Sea in Suffolk.
Yeah, and
right.
it's labelled as the UK's Area 51 because of the amount of UFOs that are spotted around the area. So, yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting place. Who knows what stuff went on there?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, cool. That's I've learnt something else as well. Like I say, I'm from on the border of Suffolk, in Suffolk, and whenever I look at a map, for little places to go every now and then, I do see Orford Ness pop up, but never kind of seemed interesting. But yeah, next time I'm that way, I'll definitely be paying that location a visit. So have you guys been there yourself, did you say?
Yeah, we have. That's that also follows the ley line going up through Suffolk up on across the North Sea. So there's definitely something of significance there at Orford Ness as well.
Cool, and it's a
We
spooky looking
it.
place, isn't it?
It is for sure.
They
Just
do
looking at
actually
pictures now on Google.
occasionally they do. I think they do nights where you can stay over on the spit at Orford Ness, and you can do a stargazing event that goes on there, and you camp there. I think that'd be something we would be interested in doing at some point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys ever wanted to collab and you're ever, in this area, Suffolk, Cambridge, Essex, let me know and we can do something together and
Okay.
Definitely.
that'd be really cool. I'll be up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to, I do this podcast a lot and I speak to people, but I'd like to get out more and, visit more places, and I'm planning on growing like a YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
So I haven't really started with that, but yeah, I'll be doing much more. So it'd be cool to visit these places and just meet more people in the community.
Your ghost story. Your ghost story.
Just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your incredible support. Your Ghost Stories is just over a year old, and we're currently getting around 10,000 organic listeners per month, which is mind-blowing. As most of you guys will know, Your Ghost Stories is a fully independent podcast, and the running and upkeep of the show are entirely funded by myself. To help me continue bringing you these fascinating weekly interviews and stories, Your Ghost Stories is now accepting donations via PayPal. Each month, 50% of all donations will go to a different and selected charity, chosen by you through a poll on our Instagram page on the 1st of each month. The remaining 50% will be used directly to help keep the podcast up and running and expand our reach through marketing. Your contributions not only help us to grow and continue to thrive, but more importantly, will make a difference in the world. You'll find a link to donate any amount of your choice in the description of this episode or via the website yourghoststoriespodcast.com. If you're not in a position to donate, I totally understand. Times are difficult for a lot of people right now, but if you still want to help support the show for free, you can do this by following the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to this podcast, or even better, by leaving us a kind review to help others just like you find the show. Thank you so much for your generosity and support.
Your ghost story. Your ghost story.
Do you guys have any other ghost stories? Like what would be the most kind of terrifying thing that you've come across in your time?
Oh, there's so many. I think one of the most terrifying was when Blair and I visited the gunpowder mills in Waltham Abbey in Essex. The place is closed down. They used to test bombs there was it the Second World War?
I think they started
Or the
messing around with
first.
gunpowder in the 1600s, but it's actually related to the bouncing bomb was kind of partially tested or developed there.
And it's a lot of the place is condemned and it's actually shut down, but we both visited there, and we decided to try and not break in but get under a fence or something.
Slip in.
Yeah. And when we were both there, the sun was coming down, it was getting quite dark. We found a chain link fence and we were able to slide underneath it, but we both heard at the exact same time what sounded like a woman over a tannoy telling us to please step away from the fence. So we thought it was security. We got really scared and we ran and we panicked. And then we realised, hang on a minute, there's no security here. This place is shut down.
No tannoy system.
No tannoy system. So we went back in and we started taking pictures on our camera phone. And we believe that we picked up the image of what looked like a woman that could have worked there in the Second World War. So we both heard a woman tell us to step away from the fence. And I think that was probably the most terrifying thing we'd ever experienced, because it was together as well. So neither of us could deny it, that it happened. And we spent that night talking about it. And we were so scared. I cried and we were so terrified we were going to delete the pictures from our phone.
It was because
That's probably the scariest.
that's one of the scariest. Definitely, that was a really interesting experience, and we do mean to go back there. But that was such a weird experience.
It was. We both heard a woman as like clear as day, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the spookiest experience we've had together. There was, I
Yeah.
think,
Mega creepy.
yeah, the spookiest ghost experience I've had personally is a thing that I called the creeper. And that happened when I was probably, I don't know, 21 or something like that. And my dad had just moved to Suffolk, to Halstead. And he had a big townhouse, and we were I was helping him move in. And I was staying in the spare room on a mattress on the floor. And I woke up one night and I was completely paralyzed, kind of like a sleep paralysis. And I was laying there looking at the ceiling, confused at why I couldn't move. And this is probably early hours in the morning, it's pitch black. And then I felt what felt like a cat walking up my legs. Bear in mind, I couldn't move to look what it was, but it felt exactly like a cat creeping up, like walking up my legs. As anyone that's got a cat will know what it's like when a cat jumps on the bed and walks up your body to, you know, get on top of you. And it was kept coming up my legs, and I couldn't move until it got onto my stomach and then onto my chest. And I had pulled the duvet up, but I couldn't move my arms. So my eyes were fixed on the ceiling, and I was thinking, any second now, I'm gonna see whatever it is. And I was terrified, so scared, probably one of the most scared I've ever been in my life. And the moment when it would come over the top of the duvet and look at me in the face, almost like a black smoke or black flash went over my face, and I saw it go up the wall and into the ceiling. And that was really terrifying. And the moment it went into the ceiling, I was completely and utterly free again. I could move. And I just remember coming out of the room and knocking on I think I knocked on my dad's door and asked to get a drink, and I didn't go back to sleep. I was terrified.
Mate, yeah, that sounds awful. It does sound like some kind of sleep paralysis, but I really do think there is something to sleep paralysis. I don't think it is just something psychological going on, because I think when you're in that state, that, dream state, or halfway between, I think, I don't know, I think there's some crossover between the spiritual world and, our realm. So yeah, that's yeah, that sounds like a creepy experience.
Yeah.
And I take it nothing like that's happened since.
No, it hasn't. No, nothing like that since. No, I've never had that experience, and I'm pretty glad I haven't.
I bet. Well, you guys have been really awesome guests, and it's been great fun chatting to you and just hearing some of your stories. I appreciate your time and for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to finish up on?
It's been so fun to talk about our experiences, and it's really nice to be on the podcast.
I appreciate your time and I appreciate you coming on. So just remind people where they can find you.
So you can find us on TikTok. We're at hidden.uk. And yeah, if people go and check out our channel, we deal with the historical, paranormal, weird and wonderful, UFOs, and a little bit of UK culture.
Yeah, there we have it. Go check it out, guys. And I'll put the link to your TikTok in the description of this episode as well, so people can just go down there and click it and come and check you out. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
speak soon.
Yeah, stay in touch. See ya.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.